A part-time driver with only 13 Cup starts just walked into one of the most electric atmospheres in NASCAR history and drove away with the win. But before we get to the winner, there's a crash that changed everything. A revenge move 3 years in the making, and one driver who may have just watched his entire season fall apart in a single afternoon. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why today was not just a race, it was a turning point for the entire 2026 season. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. We break down every race, every rivalry, every storyline that matters in NASCAR. You do not want to miss what's coming. Naval Base Coronado, an active U.S. military installation in San Diego. Aircraft carrier in the background. City skyline in the distance. 3.5 miles of track cutting through the base. 16 turns. 75 laps. And a crowd that had absolutely no idea they were about to witness something historic. This was America 250 weekend, NASCAR's celebration of the nation's upcoming 250th birthday, and they chose to do it here, on one of the most visually stunning and logistically insane race venues ever attempted. Rough pavement, different track surfaces stitched together, a literal hill between turns 1 and 2 that was launching cars 4 wheels off the ground, lap after lap. Shane Van Gisbergen called it a beast. Ryan Preece compared the tire wear to a hybrid of Old Atlanta and Darlington, except you're turning both directions. This was not a normal race. Nothing about today was normal. Let's start here, because everything flows from this moment. Just before the halfway point of the race, 3 of the fastest cars on the track were racing hard in the top 10. Shane Van Gisbergen, Connor Zilisch, and Austin Hill. All 3 had qualified in the top 10. All 3 were legitimate threats to win. And then, a restart happened. Austin Hill got the lead. Zilisch lined up right next to him. Van Gisbergen was in row 2, tracking them both, ready to make a move. Hill got a clean launch. Van Gisbergen saw the opportunity. He thought about going 3 wide, hesitated, and then Hill overshot turn 1. He just drove it in too deep, lost grip, drifted up toward Zilisch. By the time Hill tried to correct, it was already too late. Zilisch gets punted into the wall. Van Gisbergen has nowhere to go and piles in. Both Red Bull machines absolutely destroyed. Austin Hill limps to the garage shortly after. The race was barely halfway done, and 3 of its biggest storylines just ended on the same piece of concrete. Now, Austin Hill, credit where it's due, he stepped up and took responsibility. And after watching him celebrate his O'Reilly Auto Parts Series win the day before, you understand there's a lot of emotion swirling around this team right now. But on Sunday afternoons, this is the second time in 2 weeks where a car to Hill's outside got the worst of it. At Pocono it happened. Here, it happened again. And those patterns don't go unnoticed. For Zilisch, the rookie season from hell continues. This kid cannot catch a break. At some point, the universe just needs to give him a free lap. And for Van Gisbergen, this is where the story turns genuinely painful. Before we get to what this crash means for Van Gisbergen's season, and trust me, it's bad, let's talk about the man who actually won this race. Because the story of how he got there is just as wild as the crash that cleared his path. 13. That's the number of Cup Series starts Cory Heim had coming into today. 13 starts, no wins. And yet, if you watched him all afternoon, he looked like a 20-year veteran. This was also his first road course start in the 2311 Toyota, a different discipline entirely, and on a track that nobody had ever raced on before, in front of a massive crowd, under maximum pressure. Cory Heim was the best driver on the track when it mattered. Here's what made his performance so impressive. During the second-to-last green flag run, Kyle Larson, one of the greatest road racers on the planet, had built a 5.5-second lead over Heim. 5.5 seconds. That's not a gap, that's a statement. But Cory Heim understood something. He understood tire conservation. He understood the long run. And lap by lap, he started eating into that lead. By the time both drivers made their final pit stop, Larson's 5.5-second advantage had shrunk to half a second. Half a second. Heim had closed over 5 seconds in one green flag run without ever making a mistake. That's not luck. That's racecraft. That's reading a tire, managing a car, and executing a long-game strategy that most experienced Cup drivers still haven't figured out. On the final run, Heim didn't have Larson to worry about anymore. He had Tyler Reddick, the current points leader and one of the most dangerous road racers in the field. And Heim forced him into a mistake. Reddick burned up his left front tire trying to hold position. The door opened. Heim walked through it. The 67 car had never won in Cup Series history. Now it has. Here's where things get interesting. Before Heim could get to Reddick on that final run, he had to get through Carson Hocevar. And there's 3 years of history between these two. Cast your mind back to Phoenix 2023, Truck Series Championship race. Cory Heim was in the lead. The championship was right there. Hocevar made an aggressive move, made contact with Heim, and spun him out of the race lead. Heim lost the 2023 Truck Series Championship because of that moment. For nearly 3 years, Heim has said very little about it publicly. He hasn't stirred the pot, hasn't started drama. He just waited. Final lap of the inaugural Coronado street race, biggest stage of his career. Hocevar is right in front of him. The championship is not on the line, but the win is. And Heim made his move, and Hocevar spun out. If you're a Hocevar fan, you're furious. That's fair. But if you've been watching NASCAR long enough to remember Phoenix 2023, you understand exactly what just happened. What goes around, comes around. Self-policing. And Heim picked the most dramatic possible moment to collect. These two are both in their early 20s. Different teams, different manufacturers. A real, authentic rivalry with actual heat behind it. This is going to play out for years. And today was the opening statement. Now, remember what I said about Van Gisbergen's season taking a brutal hit today? Let's talk about the actual numbers, because when you see them, you'll understand why this DNF might be the worst thing to happen to any driver in the 2026 season so far. Before today's race, Shane Van Gisbergen was 14th in the championship standings, only 10 points above the playoff cut line. 10 points. Not a comfortable buffer by any means, but enough that back-to-back road courses felt like the perfect opportunity to pad that gap. Everyone said it. Road racing specialists circled San Diego and Sonoma on the calendar. Van Gisbergen was the betting favorite at Coronado. He was the defending race winner at Sonoma. These 2 weeks were supposed to be his runway. Instead, he goes from +10 to -5. He is now outside the playoff bubble, 17th in points. No fault of his own, wrong place, wrong time on that restart, but that doesn't make the math any easier. He still has Sonoma next weekend, where he won last year, so there's a real chance to recover. But even a strong Sonoma run might not fully repair the damage. Because after Sonoma, the schedule goes oval heavy to close out the regular season. 7 or 8 consecutive ovals. That is not Van Gisbergen's strongest terrain. And the cruel irony? NASCAR gave him the spotlight treatment all weekend. He wasn't even introduced with the rest of the field at driver intros. He was brought up on the aircraft carrier to speak with Dale Earnhardt Jr. before heading to his car. The biggest name at the event, the face of the race. And then Austin Hill's misjudgment at turn 1 ended his afternoon before it really started. Brutal. That's the only word for it. Bubba Wallace finished second, and it needs to be said, that was an incredible recovery. His team left a wheel loose on pit road early in the race. The wheel fell off on track. He got penalized 2 laps. He battled back from 2 laps down to finish on the podium. Bubba has talked for years about improving his road course game. That result is the proof. Kyle Larson finished 3rd. He's been a top 5 machine in recent weeks, which is a good sign for his championship push, even if the win didn't come today. Tyler Reddick had a rough afternoon. He started as the points leader, expected to extend his gap here, and ended up 25th with a tire issue late. Meanwhile, Denny Hamlin, who has been on an absolute tear recently, quietly worked his way to 14th and gained 11 more points on Reddick. The points gap between those two is now down to 8. Less than 10 races left in the regular season. Hamlin is coming. Ryan Preece earned 19 stage points and an 11th place finish, which quietly puts him right back on the playoff bubble after a rough few weeks. A great points day for him. Kevin Magnussen, the former Formula One driver making his Cup Series debut today, set the single fastest lap of the entire race. He also got into it with Noah Gragson on track and ended up 27th. But that fastest lap stat is going to follow him for a while. Christopher Bell attempted to race through injury today. He started the race and ran through most of stage 1 before turning the car over to 18-year-old Brent Cruz, who was making his first Cup Series laps. An engine issue ended their day early. 1 point for the 20 team. A tough one. Here's the honest assessment. This was one of the best road course races the Cup Series has put on in years. Not just because of the winner, not just because of the drama, but because of the racing itself. The tire degradation created genuine strategy. The track surface transitions created passing opportunities. The elevation change into turn 2 created airtime and legitimate danger. Cars sliding 4 wheels up at a naval base with an aircraft carrier in the background and a city skyline behind it. You cannot manufacture that kind of backdrop. The crowd was electric. There was a brief red flag, but overall, the race ran cleanly and at a good pace. About 3.5 hours total. Long for a road course, but not unusual for a cup race. Ben Kennedy and the NASCAR scheduling team once again delivered something nobody thought was possible. Racing on an active military base. And they pulled it off. Will it happen again? Kennedy was non-committal after the race, which is understandable. This is an active military installation. You can't just pencil it in annually. But if they do come back, the race experience will be even better. Every day of this weekend got smoother. The track prep improved, concessions improved, fan access improved. They figured it out as they went. If they come back, they'll know exactly what to do. And the racing will be waiting for them. Next weekend, Sonoma Raceway. Shane Van Gisbergen goes back to the track where he won last year. But this time, he's outside the playoff cut line, and the pressure is unlike anything he's faced in his Cup career. Denny Hamlin is 8 points behind the points leader and accelerating. And Cory Heim, the kid who just announced himself to the entire NASCAR world, will be looking to prove that Coronado was not a one-time thing. Sonoma is next, and it might be even wilder than today. We'll see you there.